If you're sitting there saying it's World Series or bust, you're going to be very disappointed. 29 teams do not win the World Series. 97% of the teams in baseball lose. So if you want to be in the 97%, you want to bank on that's what it takes to make you happy as a fan, you're setting yourself up for misery. This game is beautiful, and one of the beautiful things about it is that anybody can win. When you get into the playoffs, if you are the hot team, regardless of how good you were all year, how good your lineup was all year, you have the ability to get on a hot streak and win the World Series. This game is beautiful for that reason. So you got to enter into this as a fan of the sport, a fan of the game, and say to yourself, I am looking to enjoy it. This is a children's game, and it should be fun. It should be enjoyable. I think the Mets are going to put a fun and enjoyable team on the field. So at minimum, that's what I need as a fan. Do I want to win in the World Series? 100%. I want to win the World Series. But if we have a deep playoff run, I would consider that a fantastic season. We heard from a ton of Met fans who just said 2024 was magical. We didn't win the World Series, right? We haven't won the World Series in my lifetime. The non-negotiable as a fan of this game is that I enjoy what I'm watching. I can have a good time with my kids and my family, and the Mets have a deep playoff run. So let's make the playoff, boys. Let's go out there and let's go deep, and let's hopefully win a World Series. But I'm not saying I need a World Series in order to have a great season.
Yeah. I mean, the Mets have won the NL East twice in our lifetime. So, to see that we're going to win the World Series, yeah, we got to win the NL East first, right? Like that should be a goal right now.
Welcome back to Meet the Mets fans, Justin. It's a blizzard outside.
It's crazy what's going on. If you're on the East Coast, we're getting hammered over here with snow, and we figured what's better than to do a little podcast for our fans. We're all cooped up inside, and we've had a crazy week. So I think it's important that we spent a couple of days digesting what took place, and hopefully we can reflect on it. And we have a bunch of Met fans that are going to be talking about how they're feeling right now with this offseason.
Yeah, 100%. It's what we're all about here on the Meet the Mets Fans podcast, is bringing the voice of the fans out, putting you guys out on the podcast so everybody can hear what we're all thinking about. We hope the fans continue to share those reactions with us. And this is the episode that has the most fan reactions we've had so far since we started this podcast. A little over, what has it been, 3 months now, Justin, that we've been doing this?
We're up to episode 24. I don't know if that's a big deal, but that's pretty cool, right? We've had 24 episodes so far. We're pushing right along.
Yeah, man, we're doing real well. We've hit 100 subscribers on YouTube. So if you guys are following us on YouTube and all these other platforms, continue to do that. Over 200 followers on TikTok. We're almost close to 200 on Instagram. This thing has picked up a little bit of steam. We hope it continues to pick up steam, and we hope that you guys are enjoying the content we're bringing to you now. So let's dive right into it, Justin. What do we got?
Yeah, we're like the Mets offseason. It's been a slow burn. We're accumulating. We're trickling in a couple of fans here and there. We're like Novocaine. Eventually, it's going to work eventually, right? So we'll just keep coming at you, hopefully. But, in case you missed it, which I don't know, if you've been sleeping under a rock or you have no idea what's going on in baseball right now, it's been a crazy 7 days for the New York Mets. But just a little recap of what went on here. We signed Bo Bichette to a 3-year contract, $124 million. There's opt-outs after years 1 and 2. The Mets then made a trade for Luis Robert Jr. from the White Sox. We gave up Luis Angel Acuna. And then there was a big trade, right? This is the one that kind of was the cherry on top, where a lot of people talked about how we got our ace, or we got our top of the rotation arm in Freddy Peralta from the Milwaukee Brewers. And we got a really useful piece in Tobias Myers as well, part of that package. And then there's been some lower transactions, things that have happened over the last couple of days, right? I think we'll discuss today. Nothing as serious as the 3 we just mentioned before, but Mets signed Craig Kimbrell last night to a minor league deal. If he does make the majors, it's going to be about a $2.5 million contract. And then the Mets acquired Brujan, who is a super utility guy from the Twins.
Yeah, Brujan's a pretty interesting addition. He's probably a player that's going to end up in the minor leagues or designated for assignment at some point. He has not had a great major league career, but this is a guy that was once a top prospect, right? That had the ability everybody thought was going to blossom into a superstar. So definitely a flyer that the Mets are taking here. Definitely a guy that plays solid defense. So if you need him in a pinch, he's able to come up and be able to do that for you. And yeah, the smaller signings, the ones we haven't covered yet, you already mentioned Craig Kimbrell. That's another guy that's got an interesting contract for the Mets here. Could be a guy that ends up getting designated for assignment and going to play somewhere else. I could see that happening, but you never know. It's a guy that could potentially earn that roster spot and be a really solid piece for the Mets. The Mets have a good number of players now in that bullpen that can step up into big-time roles who've had the experience of doing that in the past.
Yeah, right now the Mets are sitting on closers as well as high leverage guys, right? Guys that have had both of those opportunities before. Kimbrel's just another one of those guys that has pitched at later innings. He's obviously been a closer. I think he's got 440 saves his major league career. He's a borderline Hall of Famer. I am not saying Craig Kimbrel right now, coming onto the Mets at 37 years old, is the same pitcher as he was when he was younger. But he was decent last year in 14 appearances. He had a pretty low 2 ERA. I think it was a 2.25 ERA. So again, not something that I think any Met fans relying on, but someone that, hey, if he's able to, strike gold with this, it's just a plus. Relievers are one of those positions that any year they could be decent, right? They fluctuate pretty drastically. And so even though Kimbrel's 37, we've seen guys like Kirby Yates, who is 37, 38 years old himself right now, have dominant years. And so, it's possible. I'm not saying Kimbrel's going to do that, but it can't hurt, right? It's a minor league contract. If he makes the team, it's a guaranteed $2.5 million. And so it seems like a win-win in that scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Could be a nice little story for us here. Talk about on the Meet the Mets Fans podcast. But yeah, you guys heard from us on the big reactions already. We'll tell you a little bit more about our reactions in a little bit, but I think it's important to bring those fan reactions to life here on the podcast, and we've got a lot of them to get to. The first one that we're going to start off with here is from Sam in Florida. Sam actually emailed me this earlier today. But Sam was somebody that we featured on the pod for his comment that he made on TikTok in the past. Read his comment. He was pretty down on this team for a while, and then the Mets started making some of these moves that we're talking about, and he changed his tone a little bit, which I think you'll see in these reactions a lot of Met fans have. So let's hear from Sam. Sam from Florida. Take it away.
Good morning, Met family. Good morning. Apologies if it's a little loud. I'm in the parking lot, about to head to the gym, so I got to do this quick. The moves that the Mets are making now are fire. I'm loving it. I'm happy with it. It's been a long time since we've made splashes in the water. Punching Philly in the mouth and taking Bo Bichette when everybody swore he was going to be a Philly. I love it. I kind of feel like missing out on the players that we've missed out on. It's kind of bittersweet. You know what I mean? But I'm alright with it because the moves that we've been making are fire. They've been good. Low-key getting Simeon and Polanco, those are two solid pickups. You know what I mean? They're veterans that are going to really kind of command that control that these young guys are going to need. You know what I mean? These veterans that are going to really kind of balance out that order, as far as age goes, Getting Bichette, again, that was that was a great move. That was a great power move. Swiping up Peralta, that was also something that I'm absolutely content with. Like, that was smooth. And they could restructure his contract, renegotiate it. Oh, man. Let's give that boy some more time. We can get it for a couple more years. I'll be happy with that as well. Build up the bullpen now a little bit. Maybe get a couple of arms in there that we could trust in the game. In a close game, maybe we could trust them in there. I like that idea. Maybe get another bat, something that's going to give us a little more consistency at the plate. I'm good with that also, you know what I mean? Besides that, the squad is looking good. And I wasn't the biggest fan of what Stearns was doing, I was talking my talk, you know what I mean? I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy at all. But he did his thing. He gave us an ace, you know what I mean? We got a closer, you know what I mean? Williams is not bad. He was solid. Pete, snuffed him into a little drought where he kind of stumbled a bit. You know what I mean? He did all right with the Yankees too, and now, he's gonna be a Met. He's gonna do good with us too. You know what I mean? We got a lot of pieces. We got a lot of good pieces, a lot of key pieces. Stearns made some power moves, man. He proved a lot of people wrong and shut a lot of people up. You know what I mean? At this point now, I'm shutting my mouth. I'm not talking my talk. I'm absolutely supportive. I like the moves that are being made. I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to preseason. I live down here in Florida, so I'm gonna be going down to Port St. Lucie. I'm gonna go peep them over there. You know what I mean? And kind of just, see how it goes. So long as everybody stay healthy, I think we're gonna be perfectly in the game. We're gonna compete. We're gonna contend, and we're gonna be a force to reckon with in the East. Like, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to go seeing them in Citi Field this year. Probably gonna take a trip up to New York so I can see them play this year with my family, and we're gonna rock with it, bro. You know what I mean? We in the game now. Let's go Mets. You already know.
That was definitely a change of pace from Sam. I remember him fired up after Hell Week, right? And I think a lot of Met fans were fired up after a lot of those losses during the winter meetings. I'm happy to see Sam is positive. That Port St. Lucie, maybe we got to get him live when he's down over there. That would be pretty cool. I mean, I'm happy he's going to go to Citi Field. I think a lot of Met fans early on were saying, no way am I going to go watch this team anymore. And hopefully that's a lot of the attitudes moving forward from a lot of these fans.
Yeah, Sam, when you come down to New York and you're hitting that Mets game at Citi Field, hopefully we can meet up. You're a great Met fan. That'd be awesome to catch you at a game. But yeah, one of the things that Sam talked about that really stuck out to me was talking about the addition of guys like Polanco, right? Like that veteran presence on this team for a lot of young guys on this roster that can help guide and steer them down the right pathway. The preparation that they need to have in order to be successful. Mark Vientos is one of the guys that I think is largely going to benefit from that if he stays on this roster. Brett Beatty, Francisco Alvarez, I think, are all these young players, these top prospects that are no longer prospects, right? They're major league players who've got to produce or they're going to fall out of this lineup pretty soon. So I think having those veterans around them who've played the game the right way, who work their tails off to make sure that they're successful, can only help the young guys on this roster.
Yeah, I don't want to say I feel bad for them. Polanco's making $20 million a year, but those signings occurred when Met fans were really down on this team. And so, they kind of got swept under the rug a little bit, after all the losses. But yeah, they're solid major league contributors. And after these other acquisitions that we kind of just discussed before, Luis Robert and Bo, it just makes this lineup so deep. Right. And, we'll kind of cover it later on in this podcast, taking a look at what this potential lineup might look like. But it really, having a Polanco, having a Bo, having a Luis Robert really has just extended this lineup really well. All right, next up, we got Jeno from Lindenhurst. Let's hear you, Jeno.
Meet the Met Fan Podcast. How you guys doing? Jeno here checking in about Met free agency. Some good moves here. Bo Bichette, obviously. It extends the lineup. It's good. We needed more professional hitters. The trade for Peralta, I love that. As long as we can re-sign him, we gave away two of our good prospects there. So I'm hoping we can re-sign him and get something figured out. All these moves seem good. It's just going to take me a while to get used to the new names. I got so used to Pete and so used to Diaz and getting pumped up from the trumpets. I'm going to miss those guys. So it's going to take me a while to get familiar with the new faces, but I think once we familiarize ourselves with them, we'll be all right. Yeah, I like the moves. Hopefully our bullpen can hold up. Hopefully those Yankee pitchers revert back to their old ways. Let's go Mets. Is it baseball season yet?
Oh, man, that's also a preview, right? If you're not living over here in the Northeast and you're watching this, of what's kind of going on today. That was a recording he gave me at like 11 a.m. today. Yeah, it's pretty nasty out. And it's getting worse. I think it's like hailing now, so I can't wait to go out and shovel. Yeah, Jeno, he had, it sounds that's a lot of tune of a lot of the Met fans right now. Likes a lot of the signings that took place. There's definitely some hesitation with the Peralta in terms of the contract. We'll kind of dive into that in a little bit. But overall, yeah, I'm happy. He's happy, right? He's a big time Met fan, and it's exciting to see again that the tune has changed a little bit.
Yeah, Jeno, we're gonna get a ton of snow out here. I don't know if it's like snowboarding goggles necessary, but those things are awesome. They're Met colors also, so I appreciate that for the podcast. I'm wondering the same thing he's wondering. When is spring training going to happen? Because this is crazy. The household names, like those are the names that we fell in love with as Met fans over the last 5 years, 7 years, whatever it's been since those guys have been on the team. And you're right. It's going to take time for us to move forward and to fall in love with some of the guys that are on this team. I mean, I don't even know if I want to fall in love with some of the guys on this team. I love the moves, and I think we're going to be really exciting for next year. But Bo Bichette might be gone a year after that, right? Like I saw the Mets are doing a Bo Bichette jersey giveaway. If they're going to give it to me for free, I'll get it, but I'm not paying for that. So,
Yeah, don't be buying your kids a Bo Bichette jersey just yet, all right? Let's see what he does in this year. Not that he's not a great player, but again, that contract doesn't look like he's in for the long haul. All right, what do we got here, Stefan?
Yeah, next one is going to be from Hirsch in Long Island. Hirsch, take it away, my friend.
The big question is right now, where are those Met fans that wanted David Stern's head? He made the moves that were necessary to make this team better than it was last year. In my opinion, these moves have been a major upgrade. I love the move with Freddy Peralta. I love the move with Luis Robert Jr. Bo Bichette, great right-handed bat that we desperately needed. And you know what? I think this year is going to be a good year. I don't think we're going to make it as far as we would like, but I will say on paper, we are a much better team.
All right. Hirsch, I like it. We're gonna dive into, how good the projections really are for the Mets this year. I'm with you. A lot of people wanted Stearns' head. I can't imagine he had many public appearances after a lot of those losses, but I'm sure he'll be popping his head back out throughout this offseason now as Met fans have kind of changed their tune.
Yeah, Hirsch, I was one of those guys that was calling for his head. So I'll take full credit here. I'll stand here on the podcast and tell you guys that I'm one of those fans that really, really was not happy after the hell 24 hours. I don't even know if it was hell week. It was hell 24 hours where we lost Diaz and Pete. And I was talking to a couple of Met fans for a while and saying, like, going into this offseason, we said we cannot afford to lose Edwin Diaz, and then we did. The one guy, though, that still hurts is the one guy I think we all knew was going to be gone, right? Like Pete Alonso leaving, I think we all saw it coming. We all knew that was a very strong possibility, but I don't even think about Edwin Diaz anymore, right? Like, is that me saying that I think our bullpen's fine? No, absolutely not. I think Edwin Diaz was elite. He's going to be missed in that bullpen. But as a fan, he's not the one that I'm still sitting here saying, man, if I wish that we still had that player. It's Pete Alonso. And, depending on which one of those guys you think is best, I think most people would say Edwin Diaz is the better piece, but Pete Alonso, I think, is the one that was nearest and dearest to Met fans' hearts. So, very strong reactions from a lot of us when those guys were gone. But the tune has changed.
I'm with you. Let's hear from Kevin from Massapequa. What do you got, Kev?
Kevin.
We're back. Making some moves. May never forgive him for getting rid of Pete. But we got some top-notch players. Making me excited to watch a few games and finish 82-80 where we missed the playoffs by a half game next year. I'm psyched.
I will tell him, it's so crazy. The last 3 years for the Mets seasons have came down to one game. We lost a tiebreaker to the Atlanta Braves for winning the division in 2022. Then we wound up winning the tiebreaker with the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2024. And then last year, we lost a tiebreaker for the Cincinnati Reds and then missed the playoffs. And so, he's not wrong by like that half game, that one game. People always like talk about how, it's just one game. It's a long season. It's 162 games. And that's all true. But if you take a look at the last couple of years, it's been crazy how it's been a lot of deciding factors in a lot of situations based on one game or even just a tiebreak.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, I hope you're wrong, right? I that opinion of we're going to miss the playoffs, that can't happen. I don't know if I could live with that. So I do think that this team is going to surprise a lot of people and be a lot better than we're expecting them to be. It's going to be very, very different baseball in Queens. But I do think that this team will definitely be a playoff team, and barring some crazy things happening with injuries and whatnot, this team is looking like a team that is going to produce on a regular basis, and Met fans should be excited about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, this is a Stearns team, right? He's not inheriting the team. Basically, he's bringing back from his regime, the prior regime, it's Senga and Lindor. And then, some of the young guys coming up. But there is no one else on this roster currently right now that has been signed and or brought up that has not been from David Stearns at this point. And so this is a David Stearns team. There's really no excuses at this point now for the Mets to be missing these playoffs. And if they do miss the playoffs, this is going to come solely on the back of David Stearns. And I'll tell you right now, if it is 82-80, this is going to be another long offseason for David Stearns and the Mets. That can't happen. And I am confident that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, if that happens, it's the offseason is going to be very long because he's not going to be able to rely on free agent guys that he can go and add, because there are not many of them that are going to be out there, except for maybe Bo Bichette, who has the ability to opt out of his contract.
A bunch of Mets players.
Yeah, but a bunch of Mets will opt out and he'll re-sign them. All right, next up, let's go with our guy Pete from Queens. Pete, often on the pod, sending us things, so let's take it away, Pete.
Hey guys, greetings from a snowy Queens, New York right now. My off-season check-in for the Mets definitely would be a lot better than the weather we're seeing outside. Right now, if I had to say where they're at, I would say probably about sunny and 65. At first, I really wasn't too crazy about the offseason. That week was brutal, losing Diaz and Pete, and I think they've rebounded pretty good, all right? We didn't get Kyle Tucker. We didn't get that smash hit of a star name, but I think the Mets are in a better place than where they might be, and here's why. I really like the acquisition of Peralta. I think it's going to be cool seeing McLean pitch as well. And I think the rotation is improved. Defensively, getting rid of guys like McNeil And moving on to Simeon should help shore up that defense. But it's a different team right now. It used to be Pete Alonso's team, and he's gone, and that still really bothers me. But honestly, looking forward to what Soto and Lindor are going to bring to this team. And I think a guy like Peralta is really going to help bring that culture back. I really miss Iglesias last year. Whatever magic they had in 2024, I really feel like he was a part of that, and they built this whole team culture. Watching some videos on Peralta after the signing or the trade, I believe, I'm not too sure. He seems like a really big team first guy. There was a video I came across where he was talking about how after games he was inviting guys from his former team back to the house and that he had like an open door policy. That just kind of gave me Iglesias vibes. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing that kind of team come back, and that these guys, this new Mets that we're going to have, will rally around Soto, Lindor, and hopefully we'll be back to an amazing summer. I know the Dodgers are a juggernaut. I know they have the best roster, and they're building the team like the Yankees used to. I remember growing up in Queens, and a lot of Yankee fans that I knew would say, oh, we got this guy, or we're going to go get this guy, and it was almost implied. I feel like the Dodgers are there now. But you know what? Just like in the 90s, the Yankees didn't win every single year. The Mets have made moves. We're maybe not as star-studded as we want to be, but we got to believe. And I think that they're off to a good start. I'm looking forward to pitchers and catchers. I'm also looking forward to the Daytona 500 because that's right about then too. But let's go Mets. Here's to a great season. And I hope to see everybody at the ball field this year. Take care, guys.
There you go, Pete. Great hair, that guy. Unbelievable. Yeah, he's
You know,
also a big
I was thinking the same
yeah.
thing. I was like, that hair on that guy.
It's crazy. Crazy. So jealous. Yeah, he's a big NASCAR guy, right? So he talked about the 500. But you know, he had a lot of good points that he was making. He talked about the Peralta. The Peralta was definitely a trade. We discussed earlier in a podcast. You know, we'll see if that turns into eventually a signing. You know, that there's a lot of new faces, as a lot of these fans are talking about right now, and I think it's a good thing. Right? When we take a look at the Mets from last year, from July on was one of the worst teams in all of baseball. And, you know, when we look at this and we say, like, you know, let's run back the same exact team, there was just no way that Stearns and Cohen were going to do that. It was brutal watching this team at the end of last year. And they did lose a lot of, you know, that chemistry you talked about in 2024. Not only is Freddy Peralta a clubhouse guy, Marcus Semien is someone that's been highly regarded. You know, I was just reading up this morning that him talking about how by the end of last year, he was inviting guys over to his house, trying to get together. And for the Rangers, very few wound up showing up to it. And it kind of just seemed like the end was near for Semien and the Rangers. And so I think that he's going to be a great clubhouse presence with Peralta. Blanco, they talked about how, again, similar attributes, right, in terms of the clubhouse presence. And so I think all of these guys that they brought on, not only are they talented on the field, but I think they're going to bring something off the field as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a really exciting time. And Pete, wish you the best of luck, you know, with everything you got going on as well. So next up, we got Brian from Oceanside.
Yeah, I guess he's a little close to me. Brian.
Yeah, you want to do that one? You can do that one.
Yeah, well, he's been a co-host before. He's my brother as well, right? So he's definitely someone that's been on this pod, someone that I talk to regularly about the Mets. Let's hear what Brian's got to say about this offseason so far.
Take it away, Brian.
Hey, Met fans. I got 4 words for you to describe this offseason. Rainbow cookie egg rolls. Just kidding. Stearns, man, he has certainly turned it around. From everyone crying and kicking and screaming to now he is the golden child. This is his team. He has put his footprint on it. Peralta, ace. McLean, ace. Peterson, Holmes, Minaya. Okay. Offense. Let's go. 4 more words for you. Let's effing go, Mets.
Do we get to keep LFGM with Pete gone?
I mean, maybe just LGM, right? Yeah, look at him. He's just a foodie at heart, right? He's always thinking about going to Citi Field and having some nice food over there. But yeah, that's a good sign, right? He's jacked up. He's ready to go back to Citi Field, right, after a lot of these acquisitions, and hopefully that's what a lot of Met fans are saying right now to themselves.
Yeah, and one of the beautiful things about the Freddy Peralta signing, and Brian's comment reminded me to say it, is he is an ace-like pitcher, right? He's very, very close to it. If he's not an ace, he's just a notch below, but he's exactly what Nolan McLean needs. It's one of the things when we talked about Nolan McLean being in the World Baseball Classic, and one of the things I'm really excited about with Nolan being in the Classic is his exposure to guys like Paul Skeens and Tarek Skubal. Having a guy like that on this team that he can be around for, if it's only this season, it's helpful to learn from a guy like that, to learn what the process is like, to be mentally and physically ready every single day to take on that role of leader of the pitching staff.
Yeah, he was talking about the pitching staff, and what that Freddy Peralta signing does is it pushes these guys down, right? All of these guys now, McLean is now no longer your 1. He's your 1A, let's say, right? And then now your Peterson now, instead of being a 2, is now a 3. And so I think it takes a lot of pressure off a lot of these guys, and the Mets had depth. That was not the issue with this rotation. The Mets had a lot of guys that are major league starting pitchers. What they lacked was that ability to go into a playoff series and saying, this is the guy that's going to start game 1 for us 100%. If it was Nolan McLean, it's just a lot of pressure that was going to be put on a rookie. Hopefully, by the end of this season, we're saying it's Nolan McLean anyway, no matter what. And now you got Freddy Peralta as your number 2. But to go into the season saying that, hey, if we make it to the playoffs, this guy has to be our number 1 going into a playoff series, definitely puts a lot of pressure on a rookie. Not saying that he's not going to be successful in that scenario, but by getting Peralta, it just pushes all of these guys down now. And again, creates even more depth for what I believe to be is one like the strong suits of our starting pitching is the depth that we do have here.
For sure. Next up, let's take it to Anthony from Fresh Meadows, regular on the Meet the Mets Fans podcast.
He loves sending us our videos.
Oh, we appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey guys, so since the last time we spoke, we've added Freddy Peralta after acquiring Bo Bichette. I did say in that video that I do hope that we add at least one more pitching piece. Adding a guy like Peralta to our rotation is a phenomenal pickup. I'm a little bit nervous about the fact that we had to get rid of Brandon Sprout as part of that deal. I did think that he was going to be a part of our long-term future with our rotation. But picking up somebody like Peralta more than makes up for it. There's really no guesswork on whether or not he's going to be a success. So looking back so far on this offseason as a whole, I would say that the start of it was horrifying with the losses that we had of Nimmo, McNeil, Alonso, Diaz. It seemed like we were heading nowhere and that we didn't know what direction we were going in. We didn't know which way was up. But with the acquisitions that we've had to replace those players, it seems like we have a part of a picture that nobody knew other than management like Stearns and Cohn. So I'm optimistic, way more than I have been. Let's see how the season goes. I think that we're built for a good season. I don't know if it's a great season. A lot of that is intangibles with chemistry. Just one request is let's get through the World Baseball Classic without any injuries, please. That's all that I care about right now. Let's have a good spring training and let's get through the World Baseball Classic and get to game 1 of 162. Take care, guys. Cheers.
Anthony,
Cheers, Anthony.
are you changing up your drink? I thought he was a White Claw guy. I feel like he's been pounding those every single time he's on.
Yeah, you never know what's inside that koozie. The metal koozie, the one that's been on top. Those things are cool. You don't know what's in there.
Yeah, he talked about the World Baseball Classic, and I know Stearns has mentioned this before, that they're going to be in close contact with a lot of the coaches to make sure that they're keeping up with what the Mets believe to be the proper off-season regimen and training for these guys. They're not going to be pushing it too much. What happened with Diaz was such a freak injury. He was not hurt while pitching. He was hurt during a celebration. Obviously devastating. Coming out of a really successful 2022 into 2023. But, let's hope anything could happen. I'm not saying because they're playing the World Baseball Classic, they're going to get hurt. They can get hurt in spring training, right? It's all the same. The last couple of years, we've seen injuries happening to our starting rotation throughout spring training. We definitely deserve at this point to make it out without those injuries happening. But again, we do have that depth, right? That we kind of just mentioned before. We have a lot of guys that either if they're going to not be in the starting rotation are capable of being in the starting rotation.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the little knock right here. Knock on the glass, knock on the wood in front of me. Let's hope that happens. But injuries are a part of this game. It's incredible the depth that we have. Right, very likely Jonah Tong is going to be in the minor leagues to start the season. Very likely Christian Scott is going to be in the minor leagues to start the season. And we've got guys around this team that can step into those roles. So we really, really are blessed to have that. I think where a lot of teams may not have the quality of the depth that the Mets have. I hope we never have to see it. I hope that Jonathan can spend the entire season in AAA. The likelihood of that happening is not great. Guys get hurt. It's part of the game, and you've got to be prepared for that. I feel like the New York Mets are prepared to handle it. Hopefully not in the World Baseball Classic, because that'll just put a sour taste in everybody's mouth.
Yeah. All right, last one here. We got Corey from Nyack. Corey, what do you got going on?
All right, now that the emotional trauma has passed, I've had more time to reflect on it. And while I see what Stearns is doing, clearly a plan came into shape, so I applaud him for that. While I disagree, I thought Pete could have been part of this plan. I get it. Not his kind of player. He would have gotten rid of him in 23 or 24 if it was up to him. But 23 was an evaluation. 24 was just too magical of a year that they needed to bring him back and run it back. But I do agree with the philosophy. You just can't keep running it out there again. That's a very Waponian Met way to do it. So I'm excited. The one thing that I'll never understand is Diaz. Pete, I know that they didn't want him back, whether you agree with that or not. That was part of their plan. I think Diaz was just a mess up on that part. I think they got arrogant. They let the Dodgers sneak back into it, and Diaz is gone. With that said, I'm very happy with the moves. Love the trade. I was excited about Jet Williams and Sproat, but I remember Generation K, the untradeable pitchers. So you gotta trade those guys. So you gotta make trades, and the value of such a strong farm system is unlike the past. It's not going to destroy them. I'm excited about it. I also don't buy the fact that Stearns won't try to get an extension. I think his whole long-term contracts for pitchers is a little bit overblown. There's some truth to it. But anyway, let's go Mets. I am excited about the moves. At the very least, it's going to be fascinating. It's a completely different team. And look, the reality is, really over the past 6-7 years, with that core together, we've had 2 good years, one of which was 2022, which resulted in an ultimate collapse at the end of the year, and 2024 was magical. That was the aberration. So anyway, looking forward to the season. Let's go Mets. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, appreciate that, Corey.
Listen, you got to give up good players to get good players, right? And I know people are talking about Sproat and Jet Williams, and, they are 2 top 100 prospects in all of baseball. But you have a proven top of the rotation arm in Freddy Peralta. And so I am not sitting here saying that the Mets fleeced the Brewers. I don't think that they did at all. I think that the Brewers actually got a really fair package back. I think both organizations made out pretty well. The Mets are in a win now mode. I'm not saying the Brewers aren't, but the Mets are in a different financial situation than the Brewers are. And so they're in a win now mode. So, we do have that deep farm system. We'll touch upon it a little bit later in this pod. But, this was something that the Mets had to do. You could not run it back with the same starting rotation without improving upon it in some capacity. David Stearns checkbox a lot of stuff in this offseason.
Yeah, if you're looking at the trade and saying, trying to evaluate any trade, I think when both sides walk away from that trade saying, I'm happy with what I got, but I'm upset with what I had to give up, that's the definition of a fair trade, right? The Brewers clearly don't want to give up a guy because they're not trying to rebuild. The Brewers are looking to be a playoff team this year also. So they're looking at taking a guy like Sproat, who the Mets are going to have in the minor leagues likely with the rotation we had. Maybe he comes up and he's starting the season battling for that spot in spring training, but a very good shot that he ends up in AAA for us. The Brewers are going to start him, right? So he's going to be able to be on their team and contribute for them right at the beginning of the season. Same thing with Jet. I've always said when it comes to these prospects, it's really, if you're going to have these guys and they're ready to be at the major league level, they've got to be here. If not, you got to trade them. If you don't have a spot for these guys to play, they've got to help your team in one way or another. And trading those guys, while it hurts because maybe they'll blow up and be Pete Crow Armstrong at the end of the day. If that happens, that'll be sad. We've got Freddy Peralta, which makes our team a legitimate playoff team going into this year. And we'll take a look at just how much that trade has benefited the Mets and their ability to be successful this year, at least by the projections.
Yeah, I hear you. It can be a Pete Crow Armstrong, but it also could be a Jared Kelenic, right? When the Mets traded for Diaz in 2018. And so, again, these guys are prospects. It's nice having and saying that we have one of the top farm systems in all of baseball. We have all these guys that are going to try to make it to the major leagues, that are going to be good, maybe, right? And so when you're able to acquire a proven top of the rotation arm, I think Stearns did the right thing there. And as you mentioned before, I think both sides walked away saying, we did pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, can't not be. All right, my fans. So Heard from a lot of you guys. We appreciate that. We're now about a half an hour into hearing from fan reactions on this podcast, and so that's pretty solid. We appreciate those. Continue to send those over to us. But Justin, how are you feeling now that you've had a chance to digest what's been a crazy 7 days for the New York Mets?
Yeah. I think Stearns, as I mentioned a second ago, I think he checked a lot of boxes this offseason, right? We're able to lengthen our lineup. I think he changed the approach of a lot of our hitters. We're not just relying on guys that are going to hit the home run. We acquired a bunch of guys that were struck out less than 100 times this past season, and then we got ourselves a pitcher in Freddy Peralta that I think is going to really change the face of this rotation. There's some trepidation, there's some hesitation with the Peralta, one being obviously the contract. He's not under contract next year. He's on a 1-year deal. Stearns kind of mentioned it when he did the press conference, or he did an interview a couple of days ago, and someone asked him, when you make a trade, do you anticipate there being an extension in terms of a contract with those players? And he kind of said, like, I go into a trade saying, this is what we have, this is the years that this guy has, and then I still determine whether or not it's worth it. And so for the Peralta trade, even though he believes it could possibly be a 1-year deal, he still believed that it was still worth it. I listened to, obviously, Evan Roberts, right, who's got the Rico, but he's also on WFAN, and he talked a lot about some of the trepidation he has. He thinks that the Mets gave up a lot, right, in terms of the 2 top 100 prospects. He also talked about Freddy Peralta's stats last year, and he talked about how he didn't go very deep into a lot of games, right? He also didn't have a lot of short starts either, right? Like when you look at his games, there was not many games in which he only threw 4 innings. A lot of times he was 5 1/3, 5 2/3. But I will say, though, that it could have been a Brewers organizational thing where I looked it up that he only threw over 100 pitches 7 times in 33 starts. And so it was definitely a Brewers organizational thing that they wanted to keep his pitch count low. They didn't ever want to extend him. And so it's very possible that he could have gotten past, right, those 6 innings or those 5 1/3. But the Brewers made a decision to say, let's hold this guy back because we're at X amount of pitches. He's also a high strikeout guy. And so when you look at high strikeout guys, his strikeouts per 9, right? You're talking about over 10, which is elite for a starting pitcher. When you're looking at a high strikeout guy like that, your pitch counts are always going to be a little bit higher than a guy that gets a lot or induces a lot of ground balls. It's just the nature of the business. He was able to limit his walks, right? He was right around a 3 for walks per 9, which is very serviceable. And so, I am not overly concerned about the innings pitched because I think that, the Brewers made an organizational decision. And I think that if the Mets needed him in a big spot, right, where a lot of our bullpen was taxed, I think he can definitely be someone that can throw into the 6th inning for sure.
Yeah, just really quickly on that concept of him not being able to throw deep into games. The Brewers had one of the best bullpens in all of baseball. Yeah. Right? Their bullpen was elite. They had guys in that bullpen that they trusted. And a guy like Tobias Myers, who I'll talk about in a little bit, that could go multiple innings. He's really, really good at his role. And they had multiple guys that could step into close or be the 8th inning guy, the 7th inning guy, and rotate those guys through. I think that really impacts what you're looking at with your starting pitching. So if you've got Freddy Peralta and you don't want him to throw super, super deep into a game, not in terms of innings, but in terms of pitch count, you don't have to because you've got an elite bullpen behind him that can step in and carry you to the 9th inning. And I think that matters when it comes to Freddy Peralta's ability to throw deep into games. And I think the Mets are trying to do the same thing. The Mets had a lot of guys last year that had 3 2/3 inning starts, 4 1/3 inning starts. And when you have those type of starts versus 5 2/3, almost 6 innings every single time, it sounds like it's not a lot, but it's a ton on your bullpen to be able to have to do that every single day in and day out until you pretty much get to David Peterson, who at least can throw you almost 6 innings every day. So I'm not buying that Freddy Peralta can't throw deep into games either. I think, like you said, the combination of the Brewers not wanting him to go deep and the fact that they had a very, very strong bullpen behind him contributed to that a ton.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to touch on Bo Bichette with that signing. I'm really excited for Bo Bichette. In the last 2 seasons, the players that has hit behind Juan Soto has been Aaron Judge and Pete Alonso. Aaron Judge that season had over 1,000 OPS. Pete Alonso had a 954 OPS. And both of those guys drove in well over 100 runs. Bo Bichette had 93 RBIs last year. I think Bo Bichette hitting behind Lindor and Soto, which I believe is what it's going to happen, right? I obviously could be wrong here, but I think the lineup is probably going to be Lindor, Soto, and then Bo. I think it's going to create a career year for Bo Bichette. I think he is going to have so many guys on base, so many opportunities, and we see that this guy puts the ball in play. Juan Soto now is a stolen base threat with 38 stolen bases last year, and I think that it's going to just enhance Bo's value, and I really believe that that is going to be, I think, the best signing in the offseason for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you, Justin. I think the most troublesome part of the signing is the idea that he could opt out after 1 year and leave, because I think we're all so excited for it, right? We're all so excited to have a player on our team that is the 300 hitter, but also a powerful 300 hitter, right? Like, it's not the Jeff McNeil slap hitter who just gets you a single and dunks a ball over somebody's head. This is a guy that drives the baseball, that is a legit middle of the lineup hitter. And I think we're going to love watching him play. We're going to fall in love with that player. And I think we're going to be sitting here in the offseason of next year wondering why he's not a New York Met for longer, because he just opted out. And we're going to let him test the market and see what is out there and hopefully come back to us, and we'll go through the whole saga all over again. And, that makes me concerned as a Met fan for emotionally what that's going to feel like. But we can't live in that world, right? We've got to live in the world of now, competing for what we're competing for now, which is to be a solid playoff team that's going to make a deep run. One of the things I want to talk about is, if you're sitting there saying it's World Series or bust, World Series or I hate this team, or I hate the New York Mets for not being able to fulfill the promise that Steve Cohen made to us when he bought this team, you're going to be very disappointed. 29 teams do not win the World Series. 97% of the teams in baseball lose the ability to win the World Series. So if you want to be in the 97%, you want to bank on that's what it takes to make you happy as a fan, you're setting yourself up for misery. Right? And I think, like, Yankee fans for a long time are like, if we don't win the World Series, it's not a successful year. You can't enter into it like that, especially as a fan of this game. This game is beautiful, and one of the beautiful things about it is that anybody can win. Right? When you get into the playoffs, if you are the hot team, regardless of how good you were all year, how good your lineup was all year, you have the ability to get on a hot streak and win the World Series. This game is beautiful for that reason. So you got to enter into this as a fan of the sport, a fan of the game, and say to yourself, I am looking to enjoy it. Right? This is a children's game, and it should be fun. It should be enjoyable. I think the Mets are going to put a fun and enjoyable team on the field. So at minimum, that's what I need as a fan, right? Do I want to win in the World Series? 100%. I want to win the World Series. But if we have a deep playoff run, I would consider that a fantastic season. We heard from a ton of Met fans who just said 2024 was magical. We didn't win the World Series, right? We haven't won the World Series in my lifetime. I've had a lot of seasons, though. I say a lot with trepidation. I've had a good amount of seasons where I walk away from it saying I enjoyed that. And for me, that's the non-negotiable here. The non-negotiable as a fan of this game is that I enjoy what I'm watching. I can have a good time with my kids and my family. And the Mets have a deep playoff run. So let's make the playoff, boys. Let's go out there and let's go deep. And let's hopefully win a World Series. But I'm not saying I need a World Series in order to have a great season.
Yeah. I mean, the Mets have won the NL East twice in our lifetime. So, fantasy that we're going to win the World Series. Like, yeah, we got to win the NL East first, right? Like that should be a goal right now.
Yeah, and it's a whatever goal. We can win a wild card and get in there. It is what it is.
Oh, I know. It's just silly.
If we win 100 games, and if we win 100 games and don't win the division, is that bad? No.
It happened to us with the Braves. I know.
Exactly.
It's just funny.
So,
it's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you. So Met fans, we can't have that mentality of World Series or bust here. We have to have the mentality of deep playoff run. We should expect the playoffs. I completely get that. And if we don't make the playoffs, it is not a success. But at minimum, we got to be able to have fun while we're out here.
Yeah. Last thing for me, the pitching acquisition that Stearns had made this year were pretty purposeful. At the end of the 2025 season, Stearns talked about how they learned a lot from the trade deadline. And I said to myself, like, what the heck are you talking about? What does that possibly mean? And I think what it meant was that it's important to not put guys in position that they've never done before and expect them to be really successful at it. It's possible that they're going to be successful at it, but it's also possible that they won't be. And we saw this with Ryan Helsley. Ryan Helsley's been a closer his entire career. We asked him to then throw just into the 8th inning, and we saw that was a complete disaster. The guys that the Mets have acquired this year, specifically in the bullpen, are guys that have done things that I think Stearns was looking for. For example, Devin Williams has been a successful closer, but he's also been a successful late inning guy, right? Earlier on in his career, and then we saw last year with the Yankees, especially in the second half of the season, he wasn't closing games. He was a late inning guy that he was successful in. Luke Weaver, same thing. He's been a closer before for the Yankees, successful in that role, but also successful in later innings. And then we saw a guy like that the Mets just traded for in Tobias Myers, who has started in 2024, starting pitcher. Then last year had a couple of games in which he started, bounced back and forth with AAA, and then he got brought up in the later half of the season in the bullpen, and he was really successful in that. And so we've seen guys in which I believe for Stearns are doing things that they have done before that have been successful in the major leagues, and not just hoping that they're going to be successful in those roles. And so I think that was something that when he talked about something that he learned from the trade deadline, I think that's what he was referring to in terms of getting guys that can do a role in which they've already done before and has proven or shown success.
Yeah, I'm with that also. Like, it's really important to have guys that are going to go out there and do the things they've done in the past. It's a little difficult to look at that also, but then also start two guys at first base and third base who've never done it before and expect success there. I do think that's a little different, because one of the beautiful things about those guys being out of position, and what David Stearns brought up, is that he's got 4 shortstops on his infield. Right. And shortstop is the most difficult position on the diamond, the most important position on the diamond. And obviously your best athlete is going to be at that position. 4 guys now have been shortstops for the vast majority of their major league career. They've done it well for the most part at a major league level. And I'm not saying all of them were Gold Glovers. Clearly, Bo Bichette's defense at shortstop was not great, but he played there as a serviceable major leaguer. Shifting him over to a position like third base could play so well for him in terms of his defense. So those are all bets for sure. But I think it's a little bit different of a bet to bet on shortstops being able to transition to another defensive position.
No doubt. For sure. I'm with you on that. All right, Stefan, what do you got? How you feeling about this?
So I'm overly positive. I'm hyped. I'm excited for this season. I think that the Mets are going to be really damn good. And I thought that as this team was starting to be built, right? When we signed Bo Bichette, that was it for me. I was like, wow, we are legitimately, that is the offensive piece that we needed here. And I was so excited. I think you called the Freddy Peralta, Tobias Myers trade the cherry on top, because at that moment, I felt that way. I was the guy saying, I believe in the starting rotation with the young guys. And now that we've got Freddie on this team, that is a cherry on top. It makes our rotation so much better. I want him extended like every other Met fan does. I think that hopefully happens in spring training. I believe that there's a good shot it will. I did hear something come out about Freddie being open to negotiating a contract extension with the Mets. We heard that Freddie wanted to negotiate a contract extension with the Brewers, and that didn't seem to happen. David Stearns is the guy that signed him to his first extension with the Brewers. I believe that the likelihood of him being extended as a New York Met is very, very strong. Do I need it to happen? If we win the World Series? No, I don't need it to happen. We got the goal. If we have a deep playoff run, I want him back. I want Freddy Peralta to anchor the top of our rotation for a long time with Nolan McLean. And so I would like to see that happen in spring training. That to me would be the icing on the cake. I'm not beyond the cherry on top. So I need that to happen. If it doesn't happen in the spring, and I can see that being the case where the Mets are saying, like, go out there, earn that contract, test free agency, do what you got to do. And I can see him potentially being lost in that way. There's a lot of starting pitchers, though, that are going to hit like when we look at free agency next year, the offensive grouping, terrible, but the pitching group, pretty solid. And it's obviously going to be competing with Tarek Skubal. So if you're Freddy Peralta, you know David Stearns, you're excited to come onto this team, and David Stearns is willing to talk contract extension, I think you need to listen to that before you hit free agency, because you know the Mets are going to pay you big time bucks. It's not going to be money that you're going to be missing when you sign with the Mets. And I do think Freddie's excited to be here. Shortly after this trade was announced, Freddy Peralta changed his social media. Right, he changed starting pitcher for the Brewers to be starting pitcher for the New York Mets with an orange heart and a blue heart right next to it. This guy was excited to be here, right? It wasn't like reposting the SNY, which I'm sure he did that also. The fact that he went out there and changed his bio to be like, I'm a New York Met, I think that's awesome. And I think it shows that he wants to be here. We want you, Freddie.
Yeah, he started following Meet the Mets Fans podcast. It was crazy. Totally crazy, this guy.
Well, I don't know if he started following the Meet the Mets Fans podcast, but Tobias Myers' wife did, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Leah Myers,
come on the pod, baby. Come on the pod, Tobias.
Appreciate Leah and Tobias. Leah, I appreciate you following the pod. I know that you know my cousin personally, and so she mentioned that we have this podcast and you followed us. That's huge. We really appreciate that. Hopefully, we can get you and or Tobias to come on the pod with us and talk a little bit about what it might be like to transition to being New Yorkers. But yeah, Tobias Myers is the next thing that I want to talk about. So it's a great segue. This is a guy that got put into this deal, and then the deal went through. I don't say that to make him sound like a throw-in. I think that this is the guy that made the deal happen, right? I think for the Mets, when they were looking at trying to get Freddy Peralta, we heard about the Jonah Tong being like the potential piece that they wanted, and the Mets saying, nope, not going to happen, which I'm on board with. I completely agree with that. When it got down to Jet and Sproat being the offer, the original thing that we heard was no. The Mets said no to that, and they wanted more. And the more that they ended up getting was Tobias Myers that made the trade happen. I think if you're David Stearns, you're looking at that trade and saying, Tobias Myers is a guy I know, a guy that can do multiple things. He can be a starter. He can be a great piece in your bullpen. He had a pretty solid year last year, right? He went 1-2, 3.55 ERA, played in 22 games. 6 of them were starts. He had a solid year for the Brewers out of the bullpen, was able to step in and flex and be a long man. And so Tobias Myers, I think, was the piece that the Mets wanted to say, if Freddy Peralta walks away, we still have something that we're going to be able to keep on this team and build around. We can turn him into a starter, which clearly the Mets have been successful at doing. Clay Holmes. Tobias doesn't need that type of transition that Clay Holmes does. He's been a starter as of last year. I think the Mets believe that he can step into that role if they need him to, but really he can be that long man out of the bullpen. Potentially the success we saw with tag teaming at the end of the year being one of the guys that's attached to a Sean Manaea or a Kodai Senga to keep them longer in the game. Yeah, or Clay Holmes, if you're trying really not to tax Clay, have him be a 5-inning pitcher with Tobias Myers coming in behind him for 3 to 4 innings after that. I think that could be a really successful combination, really fun things to come with Tobias Myers being added to this roster. So that's the piece that I'm really excited about, making the Freddy Peralta trade happen.
Yeah, I mean, the trade doesn't happen without Myers, right? I think it was pretty clear that David Stern said that we need a little more reassurance. We're giving up a top prospect in terms of a starting pitcher. Freddie is not under contract for next year. We need to essentially hedge ourselves, all right, and give ourselves this opportunity to make sure that we are not giving up these top prospects and for the following year having no one. Right. Tobias Myers is still arbitration eligible for the next couple of seasons. I believe it's 3 seasons. And so I do believe that without that piece, that this trade would never would have taken place.
Yeah. One of the interesting conversations I had with a friend of mine, Met fan, been on the podcast before, Joey Bo. Hopefully he's going to be joining us for an episode in the next couple of weeks. He reached out to me when we were so excited, Justin, on the last episode, and he had been pretty down on the Mets at the time. And part of the little passion speech I gave earlier in the pod was about that conversation that him and I had. But he shot me over the Mets lineup in comparison to the Dodgers lineup, which I'm going to put up on the screen here for the pod. If you compare the Mets roster with the Dodgers roster and you're looking at them side by side, I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say that the Mets have a better lineup than the LA Dodgers. The LA Dodgers are on another planet with the roster that they have. But if you're comparing Mookie Betts to Francisco Lindor, right? Comparable players. Personally, I take Lindor. If you're comparing Ohtani to Juan Soto, very, very, both of those guys are MVP caliber players. Is Ohtani better? Sure. Bo Bichette to Kyle Tucker, right? I know that Kyle Tucker is the guy that we wanted. Bo Bichette is the guy we ended up with. I'm personally happier with Bo Bichette in terms of the lineup that we're building here on the contract that we got him on. But in terms of offensive production, I feel like he is a more consistent baseball player offensively than Kyle Tucker is. So honestly, it might have been what we got second, but I take Bo Bichette over that. The rest of the lineup, the question that Joey asked me when he sent this to me was, there's a bunch of possibles in this lineup, possible guys that can be successful for the New York Mets. When you look at the Dodgers lineup, the vast majority of them are not possibles. They're definites. And that analogy of like possibles and definites was coming from our background as friends playing spades together. It's a card game for those of you who follow it and know it. The way it works is you get a hand, you're playing with a partner. You get 13 cards each, right? So it's a 4-person game. You and your partner have to bet on the number of hands that you're going to make. And you talk about that as, I'm looking at my hand and I'm definitely going to make 3. But I'm possibly going to make another 2 or 3. And so you bet that I'm going to make maybe 5 hands. That's the analogy we were having the discussion on. He said, I see 4 possibles in the Mets lineup. And I agree with that. There are 4 possible guys that can hit and have great seasons in the Mets lineup. But if David Stearns is the type of guy that we know he is, an assessor of talent, and you're looking at the possibilities that some of these guys are going to hit and take off, I bank on David Stearns and his expertise to be able to do that. The possibles in the Mets lineup are Marcus Semien possibly bouncing back and having a decent season. But if you just look at him having the exact season he had last year, I take him over Jeff McNeil. He's an upgrade. If you look at Luis Robert, I actually consider him a definite in the Mets lineup. definitely going to improve center field. Center
No,
field for the
definitely.
Mets was abysmal, and Luis Robert is immediately an upgrade over that. If he produces exactly what he was last year, he'll be far and away beyond what the Mets had on the diamond in center field. Brett Beatty being able to consistently offer what he offered last year. Hopefully he grows, but the likelihood is that he is going to be exactly the player that he was last year, which was good enough. And Francisco Alvarez being able to bounce back, being able to follow up with the season he had last year and having a consistently healthy season, huge possible, right? Not definitely something that any of us can guarantee. But if you can hit on those possibles, you've got yourself a lineup that can absolutely compete with the Dodgers. And I didn't even talk about Mark Vientos. Mark Vientos is a guy, I don't know if he's going to be here or not. We've said it a bunch. But Mark Vientos, if he can bounce back to the player that he was in 2024, this lineup that you're looking at right now has him batting 9. This is a guy that, though, could be a 5-hitter on this team, a 4-hitter on this team if he's the player that he was in 2024. So there are a lot of possibilities of guys being successful. If you know David Stearns, you should bank on his ability to judge that. The vast majority of them will be.
I hear you. I know people want to say that the Dodgers are elite and why even play this season? They're going to win the World Series again. We need to compare ourselves. The Mets didn't go into this offseason and they haven't made these moves to say that we aren't going to compete. And there are a lot of teams in Major League Baseball that have taken that approach, basically saying we have no chance. We know that. We are not even going to attempt to expand or put money into our roster. And the Mets haven't done that. The Mets have actually increased their payroll from last year. They are trying to make a run for it. And so I am not going to fault the Mets. I'm not going to fault Stearns or Cohen. They did what they thought would be successful. They tried with the Tucker. They tried with the Diaz. Those guys ultimately made a decision to join the Dodgers. And the Mets, again, not necessarily their fault. I mean, the Diaz one probably was their fault. Decided to sign with that team. But again, I'm not worried about what the Dodgers are doing. I'm worried about the New York Mets. The Mets need to just be winning games. They need to play consistent baseball. They need to go into the postseason hopefully healthy. And then I think that the Mets can compete. I don't think you want to go up against a Francisco Lindor, Bo Bichette, and Juan Soto team. I really don't. I don't see no team is looking at that and saying I can't wait to pitch against this lineup. It's not possible. Those guys are legit hitters. This is a legit lineup. It's a deep lineup and one that also has a lot of potential, as you kind of were just touching upon before. And I'm excited for it. And again, if it doesn't work out, I'm confident that during the trade deadline, that Stearns and Cohen will make the necessary moves that we need in order for this lineup to be successful.
Yeah, I'm with you, Just. Let's jump into the predictions for what this team are. So we've talked about our hopes, what we predict is going to happen. Met fans have shared theirs. But what is MLB saying this Met team is really supposed to look like? So let's jump over to those.
Yep.
So right here, you're looking at a list of MLB's top, according to MLB Network, the top 100 players right now. Might be a little difficult to see on your screen, but the Mets have 4 top 100 players on their roster right now.
Yeah, they got 4 in the actual top 65. When you're looking at Soto's 6, Lindor's 11, Bo's 48, and Freddy's at 63. You know, I know the Yankees are sitting there with 6 of those guys. 2 of those guys are 97 and 98, which at that point are pretty interchangeable players, right? Like the guy at 102 could easily be 97. The guy at 97 can easily be 102, right? And so, you know, I'm not too worried about where they're sitting in terms of their top 100 guys. What this just shows us is that the Mets have, you know, I think it was, I'm forgetting now who talked about it. I think it was Corey and Nyack talking about how he wishes they had a little bit more elite level talent. I think that's what the Mets have. I think they have top end talent, and we're hoping that the peripherals, such as the Vientos, the Alvarez, the Luis Robert, are going to just enhance the elite players that we have. Because I mean, at the end of the day, when you start your organization with Soto and Lindor, there's not many teams that have a better 1-2 punch than those 2 guys. And so, you know, I think that we have a lot of top end talent, and, you know, and it's pretty clear when you have 4 in the top 63 out of 30 teams, you know, you're doing something hopefully right in that scenario.
Yeah, 100%. According to the power rankings from MLB, this is what everybody's looking at right now. This is from Baseball Reference. I believe Baseball Reference. The Mets are listed 3rd in terms of the preseason, the pre-spring training power rankings. It's obviously the Dodgers on top, the Chicago Cubs, the New York Mets, the Blue Jays, who were in the World Series last year against the Dodgers, and then the New York Yankees are rounding it out at number 5. I look at this and I'm saying absolutely. Like I think the New York Mets have one of those rosters that when you sit there and you look at it, you say this team is a team that's going to be able to compete with the top teams in the National League for sure. I think it's a little bit of a surprise that 3 National League teams are the top 3, and the American League teams are 4 and 5 right now. 4, 5,
Yeah.
6, 7, 8 are the American League teams on this list.
Forget about just the American League teams. The East, between the NL East and the AL East, out of those 10 teams, you're looking at 7 out of the 10 teams are from the NL East or the AL East. That's crazy what's going on over here in the Northeast. Yeah, listen, I think that there's a lot of projections out there that are really happy with what the Mets did. David Stearns is obviously a really analytical, he's a smart guy. He's not looking at those players and saying he doesn't believe that they're going to be successful, and the analytics are backing that up. Again, when we're taking a look at our next graphic over here, the Mets are currently ranked 3rd in wins above replacement. So, where is that number coming from? Like, why are they ranked so high in the preseason rankings? Is because they believe that a lot of those guys that they currently have are going to help them win ball games, right? And so, I think that and we heard it from Met fans on this pod is that they're excited, right? That I think that the tune has definitely changed as the expression of this podcast has been, is that we are sitting here saying that this team is going to be successful, that we've made a lot of moves that were correct, hopefully, and that baseball has agreed to it. Not just David Stearns, who everyone talks about as a genius boy, right? But all of analytics and baseball are agreeing with what the Mets did and what Stearns did.
Yeah, and so this is from Michael Barron, the one that we're looking at right now, which has the Mets at a 46.6 WAR. And so, I think when we talk WAR, a lot of people are like, it's a flawed statistic. People call it a flawed statistic because it includes defense in that statistic. If you look at Bo Bichette to Pete Alonso and say which one of those guys would have made this lineup better, there's arguments to be made for both. Pete Alonso, obviously the better slugger. Bo Bichette, obviously the better contact hitter. But Bo Bichette blows Pete Alonso out of the water in WAR because of defense, and he wasn't even a good defender, right? This Mets team has greatly improved their defense, especially up the middle. I'm not going to sit here and make arguments about third base and first base with guys who've never played the position before. I personally think they're going to be fine, but I'm not going to argue about that. The up the middle defense of the New York Mets is elite at this point. It's really solid, and that predicts wins for the New York Mets. And so that's what brings us up to this really high WAR, 2nd behind the Dodgers in the National League, 3rd behind the Yankees overall.
Yeah. And when we talk about when we talk again about like being 2nd to the Dodgers, Stefan, you were just talking about with your buddy Joey B, like how, what's our goal here? Is our goal to actually win the World Series? And the Mets are currently like projected to have the 2nd highest odds to win the National League, right, at 12%. The Dodgers are at a crazy 48%. And again, there's nothing that we can do. We can't keep comparing ourselves to the Dodgers. What we need to do is worry about the Mets. We need to win games. We need to make it to the playoffs. We need to hopefully be healthy. We need to be hot, and we need to hopefully, get lucky and beat this Dodgers in a 5 or a 7 game series.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the game that I was speaking about earlier. It's you can beat the Dodgers in a 5-game series, right? Like it's possible that's going to happen. The Dodgers don't win every single year. They've spent a ton of money, so have we. We're going to put a roster out there that I think we're going to be really happy about, Met fans. I think we're going to be enjoying watching them play, and I think if the Mets play the Dodgers in the playoffs, it's going to be one hell of a series, and I'm not counting us out of being able to beat them.
Yeah, I think that this roster, compared to the 2024 roster, in which the Mets, they obviously lost to the Dodgers like in the NLCS. I think that this is a better roster than we had in 2024. I think it's a deeper roster. I think, again, our pitching staff is much, much more refined. And so I think that if we are able to like weather some storms during the regular season, stay healthy again, I think that we definitely can compete against any team, including the Los Angeles Dodgers.
So that's going to bring us to the end of the pod here, Met fans. A lot to be excited about. Many of you are, as you should be. And the Mets are heading into spring training in a very, very positive way. I wouldn't close this down from being able to make future deals that we're going to be talking about here on the podcast. I think that's still a possibility. Is it likely? I don't know. You know, there's still some talk about Kodai Senga and whether or not he'll be a part of this team. Can he be shipped off? Hopefully not for a bag of balls, but really hopefully for a piece that helps this team, whether that be rejuvenating the prospects. But we're going to touch a lot on the prospects on our 26-man roster on the next episode of the podcast. Appreciate Met fans. Continue to like, follow, and subscribe. And let's go Mets. Josh, you want to close this out?
Let's go Mets. Yeah, I'm happy Met fans are excited. All right, we're excited, obviously, right? And so let's keep the good vibes going.
Meet the Mets fans, voices rising up from the stands. Hear their cheers, hear their groans, feel their highs, feel their moans. Stories untold now on the mic. Mets fans unite.